The Miyamizu mission. This mission was to prevent an incoming disaster from killing hundreds of people. The mission was designed over 1200 years ago by the strongest Shinto priest in Itomori. With the aid of their god Musubi in future generations, their mission would be a success. What she didn't count on was this happening. I've seen a lot of criticism about this movie being too deus ex machina, plot convenience, or it just didn't make sense to them. Either way, a lot of people had questions about this movie. Some of the most common questions I have seen were these. I'll be answering those questions and more, but first I'm going to go over the plot really quick in case you forgot. In 2013, Mitsuha Miyamizu is a 17-year-old girl who lives with her sister and grandmother in a small town in Itomori. The Miyamizus are in charge of carrying out the traditions of their Shinto shrine, worshipping the god of Musubi by performing various tasks such as Kumihimo, Kagura, Kuchikamizake, hosting the autumn festival, and traveling to the altar of Musubi. In 2016, Taki Tachibana is a 17-year-old boy who lives in Tokyo with his father. We aren't given much information about him other than he goes to school, works at an Italian restaurant, and wears a cord that was given to him by someone. Mitsu and Taki have a dream body switch where they switch bodies on consecutive school days. They are only fully aware of the fact that they are switching consecutively when they start leaving notes to each other on their arms, notebooks, and cell phones. Yes, there is a 3-year difference, and they never notice it until later, because when they switch, they describe it as a dream-like state, so everything is a little bit fuzzy, or they're just too preoccupied with other things. One day the switching stops, and Taki is left asking why. So he tries to find the town Itomori, but in his discovery, he finds out that there was a comet that destroyed the town 3 years ago, killing its residents, including Mitsuha. Determined to change the past and save Mitsuha, Taki travels to the altar of Musubi, requesting to change time by drinking Mitsuha's Kuchikamizake. Taki experiences visions of the past and views Mitsuha's life and death in one flash. Musubi accepts Taki's request, so Taki wakes up in Mitsuha's body on the day of the comet. Taki creates an evacuation plan, but it seems unlikely it will work without the help of Mitsuha herself. Taki and Mitsuha meet at the Musubi altar and enter Kataware Doki. The Musubi altar is a special place, so at Kataware Doki they enter into a special realm, separate from space and time, able to interact with each other. However, this realm only lasts for a short while when the sun and moon are at odds with each other. Taki gives back Mitsuha's cord he's been holding for 3 years and tells Mitsuha about evacuating the town. Near the end, they want to write each other's name down so they don't forget, but instead Taki writes "I love you" on Mitsuha's hand. Before Mitsuha could write anything down, she disappears. They both return to their respective bodies and times, Taki in 2016 and Mitsuha in 2013. Mitsuha is able to convince her father to evacuate the town and everyone was saved. Both of them lost memories of each other and the events that preceded, but they always felt lost, searching for someone. Eventually Mitsuha moves to Tokyo. 8 years since the comet, they finally see each other passing on the trains and frantically search for one another. When they finally meet, they still don't remember each other, but they turn back to ask for their name. To understand this movie, you need to be somewhat familiar with the Japanese religion Shinto. Shinto's main philosophy is being in touch with Kami. Shinto is a polytheistic religion where they view multiple spirits in nature or concepts as nature as gods. The Kami that the Miyamizus worship is Musubi. There isn't much information on Musubi, but according to the oldest texts in Japan, Musubi were 2 deities that created heaven and earth. To understand all the traditions Mitsuha practices, we must go back 1200 years when the last comet struck. The first Miyamizu responsible for constructing the shrine, the altar of Musubi, and creating the traditions was the most spiritually powerful of them all. She had a very strong clairvoyance ability that could see the comet returning and destroying the Itomori village. 1200 years is a long time, so she decided to put in several fail-safes to ensure that the generations in the future would know of the comet's return. The clairvoyance ability would become weaker as generations passed, so she made it a tradition for new shrine maidens to strengthen their spiritual powers by weaving cords and imbuing their spiritual energy in them. The cords would be scattered across Japan, and if someone were to wear it for long enough, that person would be connected to the Miyamizus. This of course would cause a time delay, which is a perfect flaw for predicting a disaster. What she didn't know was how unreliable the connection would be, as Grandma Miyamizu explained that it felt like a dream that she had forgotten. A kagura is a dance performed by shrine maidens at various Shinto shrines. Each kagura is different because the dance tells a story or a tale about a particular god that they worship. A comet is basically the product of heaven and earth to the people of that time, so they viewed the comet as musubi. The dance consists of an orbital pattern where the two dancers are in sync with each other until the very end where they split and fall to the earth. Also, the instrument and headband they wear has a dragon on it. Makoto Shinkai has said that in a Q&A that the dragon symbolizes the comet. That's how he came up with Taki's name. The Kuchi Kamizaku is made for the purpose of offering it to musubi. When the Mimizus would travel to the altar, they need to offer something precious to them in order to return to the physical world. The Kuchi Kamizaki would contain half of their soul. Since the Kuchi Kamizaki contains half of Mitsuha's soul, her spiritual power would ferment in the alcohol as well. That's why Taki is able to connect with Mitsuha once again after he drank Mitsuha's sake. The first Mimizu hoped that on their way to the altar, they would notice her beautiful artwork. Unfortunately, it was just too damn dark to see down there, so no one saw the cave paintings of the comet. During Kataware Doki, we don't know if the ability to interact with each other was the priest or musubi. Either way, it was recognized as a special area, hoping it to be of great significance for the pilgrimage. The Autumn Festival was held on October 4, 2013 on the Gregorian calendar, but since Japan didn't have that at that time, it was probably set for the last day of the 8th lunar month. Either way, it was predicted by the first Mimizu the comet would strike on that day. The Autumn Festival is especially important because it would force people to gather in one area, able to evacuate the people easier. Little did she know that loudspeakers would be invented. However, she didn't know where the comet would strike or where the safest zone would be. The comet actually strikes at the Mimizu shrine, so placing the festival there was actually a horrible idea. So that was the first Mimizu's master plan. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as intended because the meanings of the festivals and traditions were lost since the Great Mayugoro fire in the 1800s. So we know the cord is special because it contains part of Mitsuha's spiritual energy and connects Taki to Mitsuha. But what else? The moon god Tsukiyomi is the god of matchmaking. Tsukiyomi would tie an invisible red string to two people and the two would be destined for marriage. Similar to how Grandma Mimizu describes the cord of time, the string may stretch, tangle, sometimes break, but eventually reconnect again. If you've ever watched other Shinkai films, you know he likes to put moonshots in his scene. This symbolizes Tsukiyomi watching over the two people. The next question you may ask is why did Taki and Mitsuha forget about each other? Most people would say it was because of the timeline paradox, but that's not the case here. Taki and Mitsuha's body enters the musubi altar, offering half of Mitsuha's soul, the Kuchi Kamizaki. Although this is precious to Mitsuha, Taki himself did not offer anything. Unknowingly, when he left the altar, he offered his connection to Mitsuha. Taki should have forgotten about Mitsuha when he woke up on October 3, 2016, but his connection to Mitsuha was still intact because of her cord. That's why he wakes up crying, because his soul knew his connection was severed. Over time, Musubi's offering would overpower the cord, and memories of Mitsuha would fade away from existence. That's why Taki is still able to read Mitsuha's notes on his phone with his day with Miki Okudera. But later, the messages disappear when they see the aftermath at Itomori. He even started to forget Mitsuha's name when he was at the inn. Next, when Mitsuha wakes up in Taki's body in 2016 at the altar, she unknowingly offered the connection that was just restored from the Kuchi Kamizaki. However, this time, when they exit Katawara Doki, Taki doesn't have Mitsuha's cord, so his connection was completely lost. Mitsuha is still able to remember the comet's impact because it was not in direct correlation to their connection, because it was confirmed by other people like Teshi and Sayaka, but she does eventually forget Taki's name and the events that happen as well. So how are they able to know that they lost something? Well, when Taki proposed to write their names down, I bet you thought he was so stupid to write I love you instead of writing his name, right? I mean, if you just write Taki Tachibana, address, Tokyo, blah blah blah, easy to look up, right? Wrong. If Taki had actually wrote down his name, Musubi's offering would prevent Mitsuha from making any sense of it, or just like with the cell phone messages, it would disappear. Taki writing I love you was the greatest move he could have done. Because it was a feeling of love that was written down, Tsukiyomi protected that message from being erased. Musubi couldn't do anything about that. Even until the very end, they still aren't able to remember each other, but they knew that they had a special connection. That's the power of Tsukiyomi. Taki was searching for a job as an architect. However, he was not following the traditional philosophy of building high-rise buildings for huge companies. Makoto Shinkai has said that he draws a lot of inspiration from Hayao Miyazaki. If you aren't familiar with Miyazaki's work, his main theme is in line with Shinto's goal of being in touch with Kami. Respecting the natural world is the ultimate goal. Unlike Western religions, Shinto doesn't view natural disasters like earthquakes, tsunamis, or, in the unlikely case of giant rocks falling from the sky, as divine punishment against humans. Instead, they just view these incidents as kami. Nothing is truly good or bad. The comet destroying Itomori is bad from the human perspective. However, it expands a lake so more water may rise and create a bigger ecosystem for the surrounding wildlife. Was this movie just a simple love story between just a boy and a girl? No. It was much more than that. It was a story about perseverance, hope, destiny, loss, death, and destruction. Mitsu and Taki could have gave up at any time, but they survive through this ordeal because of their love for each other. We interact with this world every day, not knowing who we will meet or what will happen. Everyone has love without pursuit. Everyone has loss without anticipation. This world is nothing but chaos. But in this chaos, we survive through these connections of love that can never truly be broken. But in order for us to create these connections, we must become vulnerable, asking one simple question. Kimi no nawa wa?
二人の間通り過ぎた風はどこから寂しさを運んできたの泣いたりしたその後の空はやけに透き通っていたりしたんだ